Steelers Nation, thank you very much for kindly turning back into the channel for another edition of the Steeler Culture Podcast, where we break down Pittsburgh Steelers football. Today is going to be a very interesting discussion, a very interesting video. We have a special guest joining us for what should be a very interesting discussion to talk about. Huge shout out to Philly G, a.k.a. Steel Sentinel. He is the host of the Black and Bold podcast with the Steel Curtain Network. Philly G, Philip, how are you doing, my good sir?
I am doing great. It is a wee bit late in the evening hours here, where all the fun stuff and all the things start to come out in these podcasts. It's been a long day for me. I've been building up towards needing to let off some steam, and this is going to be the perfect opportunity. Always love being on your show. It's going to be a good one. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's always a pleasure to have you on. As you guys know, I mean, we've had him on for mock drafts. We've had, I think, last year we have this sort of video, a State of the Union sort of thing?
We've done it in the past because Lord knows we've needed it in the past, and we need it again now. So
And here we are again. Here we are again to talk about it.
But here we are again.
Yeah, in fact, this has been a video in the making for, I feel like, ever since, I don't know, week 3, week 4 or something like that. And it seems like every time we lean towards making a video like this, it gets pushed back because the Steelers go through what we like to call the Mike Tomlin cycle, where they start off good, then reality sets in with a couple bad losses, and then they beat teams that you wouldn't think they would. Like you would heavily underestimate them or not give them any benefit of now going into that game, and they win, very much like the Colts game.
Yeah.
And then like the Chargers game, they go right back in reality. So right now, here we are to discuss it. The state of the union for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the state of the Pittsburgh Steelers. It is week 11 already, ladies and gentlemen. The Steelers sit at 5-4, still first in the AFC North. How long? I do not know, because the Ravens are creeping right up behind us at 4-5, and they have the Browns this week. So I guess to start off here, Philly, is do you think the Ravens have a realistic chance of coming back and actually winning the AFC North division?
You know, it's funny you say that because my wife is a Ravens fan. And
Oh,
by
my
proxy, yeah, I love her a lot.
God bless.
But my wife's whole family and everybody she grew up with is Ravens fans, and they were really hard on their team, rightfully so. You know, being 1-5, and every time she would bring it up, I told her, I was like, "Listen, they're going to be fine. They're going to find a way to claw back and try to fight for this division." And she didn't believe me. And now here they are at 4-5, and here the Steelers are at 5-4. So long as the Ravens are purple, and so long as the Steelers are black and gold, it will always be a fight to see who is going to be the king of the North. And I'm not one to be too into superstitions and things like that, but there has never been a team in the AFC North that has gone 3 years in a row being the division champs. And this would be the time that the Ravens will either break history here and be the first team in the AFC North in the new kind of Super Bowl era to have 3 back-to-back division titles, or if history repeats itself, it'll be the Steelers.
I actually, that's news to me. I didn't realize that the AFC North never had 3 straight division winners in 3 straight years.
I mean, it goes to show how competitive the division was over the course of the years, because, of course, the Steelers and Ravens were up there, and then, of course, you had the Bengals up there for every now and then. But, yeah, that's actually a pretty crazy fact.
Yeah, and go figure the Browns didn't even get one of them yet, which
well,
is
that won't happen for quite a bit.
That's the one thing we can all agree on, is no matter how down we might be as Steelers fans, we can always laugh at the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
100%. And a buddy of mine, he's a really good basketball, fanatic. And he always tells me that basketball is a game of runs and it's a game of trends. And I tend to think that that's kind of how football is too. It's a game of trends and runs. The Ravens are on a hot streak right now where they're winning a bunch. It doesn't matter how bad the team is, how good the team is, they're stacking wins. And the Steelers, the past 4 games are 3 losses and only 1 win. So it's kind of shaky on their end. So it only takes a couple games for the Ravens to catch fire and go on a 10-game win streak. It only takes a couple of games where the Steelers start to kind of fumble around to lose that edge. I mean, they're only 1 behind the Steelers. There was a time when the Steelers were like 3 games up on them. I mean, that just goes to show you how quickly things can change in the AFC North.
Yes, I'll even get into the actual numbers here. The Steelers were sitting at 4-1 after beating the Browns in week 6. while the Ravens were 1-5 after week 6 going into the week 7 bye. Obviously, week 7, the Steelers lost to the Bengals, and that was the first of what is now 3 losses in the last 4 games. They have went 1-3 in the last 4, and the Ravens have won 3 straight since their bye week.
Mm-hmm.
And their schedule, listen, I'm going to be honest with you, this is a Mickey Mouse schedule. It gets a lot easier for them. They got the Browns this week, then the Jets,
Oh, God.
then the Bengals, then they face the Steelers for the first time in December, then the Bengals again. They got a realistic chance of sweeping the Bengals, so there you go.
I mean, that's 3 straight division matchups right there for the Ravens. But even then, looking at the state of both the Bengals and the Steelers, yeah, it looks pretty favorable for just how the Ravens are playing football right now.
It'll be very interesting if Burrow will be back for one or both of those Bengals games for the Ravens. But either way, come week 16 and 17, they have more competitive matchups versus the Patriots and the Packers, and they finish against the Steelers. So their schedule works in their favor, while the Steelers, obviously we got the Bengals this week.
It only gets tougher from there.
Followed by Chicago, followed by Buffalo, followed by Baltimore, followed by Miami on Monday night, followed by Detroit, and then to close out the season, we got the Browns and the Ravens. So who has the easier schedule? It's the Ravens.
Yeah.
Who has a more realistic chance of actually winning the division? The Steelers are still first place, and any which way they can to keep stacking wins, they'll remain in first place. It's just a matter of if the Ravens keep winning and the Steelers keep collapsing, which this is looking like another early collapse for the Steelers, the Ravens could very well steal that number 1 spot in the AFC North again. And it's crazy considering, yes, Sentinel, you're right. They had a 3-game lead during the Ravens bye, and now they're 1 game behind us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird to say this because the Steelers are such a defensive organization, and I'm somebody that believes that Super Bowl teams need Super Bowl caliber defenses. However, the teams that usually have the most success are the teams that can score points. And the thing that worries me most, and we'll get into this, and I don't want to jump the gun too quickly, but the thing that worries me most and where the Ravens can score points, they have Derrick Henry, Lamar, if he stays healthy, he can score points. They still have both of those really dynamic tight ends, and their offensive line's a lot more consistent, in my opinion, than the Steelers has been these past 2 weeks. The Steelers now are starting to get into this rough patch where their offense kind of lives and dies by Aaron Rodgers and what the offensive line gives him. And if that's starting to falter as they come into that game against Buffalo, both games against the Ravens, the game against the Lions, then that's where I start to get really, really nervous.
Yeah, I agree. And you know, the thing with the offense is, here's the crazy part about not just the offense, but the defense in general, the team in general. The Steelers can't find any structure as a team because you notice the Steelers are very bipolar. One game, the defense will play flat out good and play as advertised and live up to the highest paid moniker. And in that same game, the offense will go right back to what were the problems for years now. And then the next game, it's opposite day. The offense plays up to par, and the defense can be depended on. And we've seen that in multiple instances this year, Sentinel.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that has always bothered me about this team post Ben Roethlisberger is they don't really know who they are. And that, I think, goes as an organization. I think that goes as a defensive unit, and it goes as an offensive unit. And here's what I mean by that. Defensively, what have the Steelers always wanted to do? They've always wanted to rush the passer. That's their bread and butter. But the Steelers have had a very hard time as of late being able to rush the passer. Now, these past 2 weeks, I got to give credit where credit's due. They've been playing with their hair on fire. I don't know what Jalen Ramsey said in that meeting. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall, but I would imagine it was something like to the effect of, y'all need to get your, heads out of your asses. We have a moniker to live up to here. So I got to give them credit where credit's due. The defense is looking a lot better. And for all intents and purposes, I was not mad at what the defense did most recently in this past game. But when it comes to the offense, they want to run the football, but they're not good at running the football. They want to throw the ball because of Aaron Rodgers, but they don't have the weapons to throw the ball like Aaron Rodgers wants to, nor do they really have the offensive line to pass block for them. So they're kind of in this catch-22 where they want to do something, but they can't. And that's where this team, I think, struggles, and why a lot of Steelers fans don't feel like they recognize this team anymore. Because one minute they give the ball to Jalen Warren and he's looking great and he's carving up and he's pushing forward for 9 yards a clip. And then they go away from it and they go into this passing scheme that makes no sense. And Aaron Rodgers isn't connecting with guys now. And it just looks confusing. It just looks like they don't know what they want to do.
Yeah, they literally have no identity on offense, and it's been that way for a long time. And I think you're right in your assessment ever since, pretty much since the dying days of Ben Roethlisberger, the last couple of years, where that offense couldn't find no identity. They drafted Najee to help him out with no offensive line help whatsoever. Ben's arm was shot, and I feel like we're kind of getting the same issues again. The O line, they've stepped up for the majority of the year, but versus the Chargers, they kind of regressed a little bit, especially a guy like Broderick. They want to run the ball with Warren, and as they should. They just don't give it to him enough. I think I speak for the majority of us Steelers Nation when I say you got to feed Warren.
Yes.
Good things happen when he gets the football, but the problem is he doesn't get enough touches. I got some stats for you, man. The amount of times that Jalen Warren saw the field last week was only 24 snaps, which is 46% of the offensive snaps versus the Chargers. Kenneth Gainwell had 27.
Which is 52% of the offensive snaps.
And that's only the second game this year that Gainwell has outsnapped Warren, the first time being versus the Jets in week 1.
Yes.
And Tomlin, when he was asked about keeping Jalen Warren on the field on third downs, he said he'd get more snaps if we could convert on third downs. And
yeah, but here's the issue, and I think this is where you were getting to, but here's the issue. Warren did not play any third down snaps.
No, but his
versus the Chargers.
But his reasoning was he can't play every down, which I get. He can't play every down. He's not going to play 100% of the snaps, but he's the most efficient player on your offense, and that's not even comparable. He's the most efficient guy. He is the heart and soul, the heartbeat, literally, of that offense. I feel like when the offense isn't doing much throughout the game, whatever game that may be, and Warren gets the ball, that's when the offense finally starts going down the field and getting points on the board or getting in the end zone, which at this point is kind of rare. But to take him off the field when he's the most efficient guy, or to not put him on third down once when you didn't convert a third down until 4 minutes left versus the Chargers, I feel like that is ludicrous. I think that's coaching malpractice. I think you're putting your team in a rough spot, and that's a recipe for failure.
Yes.
And I think it also, like, I get the argument that, you can only let a running back do so much. Like, Jalen Warren is not going to be your bell cow back. He's not a Jonathan Taylor or a Derrick Henry that you're going to have out there all game long, every single snap. I get that. And listen, Kenny Gainwell has his strengths. He is kind of this gadget guy that you can have do a lot of these different things. But the thing that drives me nuts, and I think the thing that drives a lot of Steelers fans nuts, is that it's when he's being so effective on the field that they kill their own momentum. Jalen Warren will have back-to-back series where he gets a first down, where he hurdles a guy, where he breaks 3 or 4 tackles, and you'd think, just keep handing them the ball. Or confuse the opposing team, have him, pass block, do something. But then they'll completely rip him off the field. They'll throw in, Caleb Johnson, or they'll throw in Kenny Gainwell or something crazy. And you're like, why? Why would you do that? It just makes no sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And I look at for example, look at the Panthers, right? They got Chuba Hubbard and they got Rico Dowdle. And lately they've been using Rico Dowdle a lot more than Chuba Hubbard. Hubbard's snaps have decreased drastically, even after getting a big extension, I think, just last year before he got hurt. But they're going with Dowdle because he's the more progressive back. He's the better back. He's the back that gives them the most success on offense. And I even remember when Najee was here, there were a couple games where Warren was out-snapping Najee because Warren was the more effective back in certain games. And it's obvious that Warren is the better and the more progressive and, without a doubt, the best offensive weapon we have currently. But for some reason, they want to take him off the field for third down predicaments and go with Kenny G. And I get it. That was one of the reasons why we brought in Kenny G. And Kenny G, like you said, he has his strengths. He's a good back. He can do what he can do. But when Warren is making plays and he's doing what he's doing on the field, you don't take that off the field. You don't take a player like that off the field one bit.
No, and I don't know if it's a situation where they get too comfortable, and we've seen this with the Steelers for a while now. Is they get comfortable and they allow the team to stay within the game, or to allow the team to come back into the game, like we've seen versus the Packers. They were up 9 points at the end of the first half, and they completely blow it. The offense got conservative, or we'll see games like, for example, the Patriots. The defense forced 5 turnovers, and how many points did they get off of them? They didn't take advantage of much of the turnovers. Now, there are also games where they do show some life. They do show some progression and some growth as an overall unit versus the Jets, versus the Vikings, versus the Browns, versus the Colts, versus the Bengals, versus the Packers. We've seen it. But there are other times where they take a step back, and I don't know if they get conservative, and then the turnovers don't help. And Aaron Rodgers, I'm hoping that was just one of those off nights, and that doesn't lead down to what could be a complete downward trend for the rest of the season, as we got 8 more of these games coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a almost like a whole triangle effect, or a overall unit where they can do what they got to do. But there's also times where they revert back to what we are used to seeing, what we don't want to see. Do you think some of those issues are still with the fact that we haven't traded for a wide receiver 2, or they didn't trade for a wide receiver 2 at the deadline?
So I have a couple thoughts here. So before I dive into the wide receiver 2 debacle, which feels like it's been going on for years now, this is one of those times where I think the Steelers' woes go beyond the personnel and bleed into management. In my opinion, and this isn't anything new, if you've listened to any of Falcons fans who had to have Arthur Smith be their head coach for a couple years, the one thing they all said was that he struggles being able to put the correct personnel out there at certain times. He mismanaged having to juggle between Bijan and Algier and Patterson. I think Patterson that last year was almost outsnapping Bijan, which is crazy to even think about, that Bijan Robinson is having to play second fiddle to anybody else, especially because of how high they picked him. But it's one of those things where it seems like that's just going to be one of the pills that we're going to have to swallow so long as Arthur Smith is part of the coaching staff for the Pittsburgh Steelers, is that he struggles with personnel. He does. I don't think he's as solid and fundamental, and I'm not trying to call for anybody's job, but I don't think he's fundamental enough to be able to strategically put players on the field to do the correct things at the correct times. We have all the tight ends in the world. We have all the running backs in the world. And because we're at a deficit with wide receiver, you would think that we'd be able to use these different types of tight ends that do different things, take these different running backs who do different things, and build off of that, scheme them open, do whatever you got to do. But no, how many times have we seen a game where we're like, is Pat Freiermuth alive?
Yeah.
Like, where did he go? Is Caleb Johnson alive? Where did he go? I know he had a bad game, but like, really, we're going to take our 3rd round pick and do nothing with him? I mean, is he really that much worse than what, Kenny Gainwell does sometimes? I know he's a liability in pass protection and other things. And I'm just trying to make a point here that that's one of those things that's just going to drive us nuts. And I don't think really is ever going to get resolved. Now, as far as the wide receiver trade, not trade situation, I do want to put into perspective that I think there's a lot that happens behind the curtain that we, the fans, are just never going to see. We're never going to see Omar Khan trying to call other GMs all day long. The information that we're going to hear as fans, we're going to get because the Steelers wanted it to be leaked. The Steelers are saying, hey, this happened. Let the media know. Hey, we're actively trying to pursue this person. Let the media know. So I think Omar's getting a little bit more heat than he deserves as far as just sitting on his lazy ass and doing nothing. Now, what I will say is that I think the Steelers sometimes get a little too cute with holding on to their draft capital. I understand it's in Pittsburgh. I understand it's going to be in front of the home crowd. And I understand that you have a record high 12 picks, which you haven't had in a very long time. However, This team has consistently shown me that it is trying to go all in this season, and no analyst and no fan is going to tell me otherwise. This is a team that is trying to go all in right now. 1-year deal with Aaron Rodgers, all these 1-year deal structures, all these big names that they've been trading and trying to acquire for. You don't just do that to be competitive. You do that to try and make a run.
Absolutely.
And that drives me nuts because if they're going all in certain aspects and then they're like, meh, a 4th and a 6th is too rich for us. Outside of the past few drafts, which Omar Khan has done very good for in getting these 4th round, talented guys, name some really talented 4th and 6th round draft picks that aren't unicorns like Antonio Brown that the Steelers have really hit home with.
Most recently, Y.A. Black in 2024.
And the jury's out on that one, you know what I mean? Like, it's like guys like that, Mason McCormick, Peyton Wilson was a late 3rd, pretty much a 4th. But my point is, it's like outside of a couple guys who are still to be determined, it's like it's not like they were trying to give up a 2nd. Like, if the Steelers would have tried to go in and like trade for Jalen Waddle and given up like 2 firsts, like the Colts did for Sauce, okay, I understand why fans and the media and stuff like that would be confused, but a 4th and a 6th?
Yeah.
Like, this is a team that gave up a 5th for Mike Williams, who did nothing last year outside of 1 touchdown. And Jacoby Myers and how this team is structured would have been way more resourceful.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people want to, say that, well, they did bring in Duggar, and they did. And I'm glad they brought in Duggar. But I think there was more they could have tried to do. I think they could have tried to be a little bit more aggressive. And, these reports of Shaheed getting a deal, but then wanting to go to be with Seattle, and, Myers also being a 4th and a 5th from the Steelers, but also from the Jaguars. It's a lot of he said, she said. We'll never really know, but it is what it is. And honest to God, I really don't think having a 2nd wide receiver would help this team from some of the critical errors they're still having. It would make things more palatable for us as fans. Hey, look, they're putting up 30 points. Hey, look, they have a 2nd wide receiver who can help convert on a 3rd down here and there. But I think there are such deeper rooted issues that are causing this team trouble, and as to why they look the way they do right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that last sentiment. I mean, I do think they should have been more aggressive in trading for a receiver, because you're right, it is just day 3 capital. Yeah, in the 4th round, they've gotten Herbig, they've gotten McCormick, they've gotten all these nice guys the last couple of years. But like you said, deeper down to day 3, nothing's really too fantastic. And I think they still have some comp picks they're going to have to ensure the ones they would have traded. So I feel like it would have been worth it. But again, adding a receiver, as much as it would have upgraded that position, because I think whoever they would have added would have been better than what they have right now in Calvin and Roman. I mean, they added MVS, who's not better than anyone on the roster. I'd prefer Scotty Miller or Skoranek over him at the moment.
Yeah.
But trading for someone that was available at the time would have upgraded the position. But I do agree with your sentiment in saying it probably wouldn't have upgraded the team that much, being that the coaching doesn't put the players in positions to perform well, or to let them succeed, or get them open, or get them the ball, or play them a certain amount of reps, or let them see snaps, right?
Yeah,
So
because look at last year, for example, with Mike Williams. Yes, he didn't do anything, but how many times were we saying, even when George Pickens was injured, and we kept playing Van Jefferson, who was here, and we just kept asking and saying, where is Mike Williams? Why is Mike Williams not getting utilized? It's because, like Sentinel said, Arthur Smith does not know how to utilize his offensive weapons. I mean, earlier into the season, how many times were we saying, where's Roman Wilson? Only for Roman Wilson to see the majority of his snaps come in garbage time. 2 of his touchdowns have come in garbage time. Or on that 4th down play where Aaron Rodgers threw it to DK versus the Chargers, Warren was not on the field, and Darnell Washington was not on the field.
And they were in the red zone.
Yes, they were. It's like, where are these players? Where are these people in the right circumstances for the Steelers to get the down right?
In fact, Darnell only saw 25 snaps versus the Chargers. And Darnell, I feel like when he's on the field, he's one of our more productive players along that entire line of scrimmage because he opens up just so much for
Yes.
everybody, especially the running game. I'm going to go back to what you stated about Arthur Smith a little bit ago. I was never a big fan of adding him because to me, Arthur Smith doesn't improve where the Steelers need improving. Arthur Smith's a run-first guy. He's very tight end heavy. He knows how to run the ball, or he thinks he knows how to run the ball. He's got certain run concepts that might open things up for a guy like Warren. But where he struggles is where the Steelers struggle. They can't throw the ball. They can't get the route concepts to get players open down the field. And that's still a constant error. And that also tends into them bringing in certain personnel where, yeah, it's like DK. They got DK, which is cool. They could have traded for a receiver, which would have been cool. But at the end of the day, does it make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of everything? Probably not. But it tends to a bigger picture too, because how many different player personnel have we seen? No matter the position, the coaching remains, the player personnel changes, and the results are the same. So that leads me to my next question to you. How do you truly feel about this entire coaching staff? And I'm talking Smith, Austin, and of course, Tomlin.
So it's going to be a little bit of a long-winded question, but follow me here. So right now, I think our coaching staff is not doing enough. And I think an organization usually comes down to two ways they like to do business. An organization either has a lot of really, really talented guys who come out of college and they're athletes. They're big, they're physical, they have the NFL traits. They're freaks. And this is where the Steelers are. The Steelers have a lot of athletic players who they hope can just be really good at what they do and not have to worry about too systematic and too complex of a concept, right? Whereas there are other teams that have a really smart concept that can take players that aren't the most gifted and make them shine. These are your Los Angeles Rams, your 49ers. And the reason why I think this team and their coaches by proxy are not doing well is because they rely too much on talent and not enough on the X's and O's. And I can give a perfect example for this in Calvin Austin III. Everybody and their sister will say that Calvin Austin III is a very talented, very athletically gifted, very fast individual, but he's not talented enough to elevate this team to where it needs to be. Now, you take Calvin Austin off the Steelers and how they like to do business, throw him on the Rams right now. Throw him on the 49ers, and Calvin Austin is going to look like a superstar because that scheme is going to elevate what he does. Same thing can be said in reverse. Take a guy like Tutu Atwell. Take a guy like, I don't know, like a Deebo Samuel back when he was doing some things. Put him on the Steelers. I'm not so convinced they're going to be super electric on this team just by being talented and not really having some kind of deep scheme to work with here. And so that's where I really feel like this team is struggling. Arthur Smith doesn't have a scheme to me that works in modern day NFL. People want to point to his time in Tennessee. That was 2019 to 2021. Do you know how much the NFL has changed since then?
A lot.
It is a completely different league. And he was dealing with an A.J. Brown who had an 11 touchdown season that second year in Tennessee. He had Derrick Henry, who was one of the best, and Ryan Tannehill, who had a unicorn year, like kind of like a Daniel Jones right now. He was having a unicorn year. And so that's fine. But other than that time in Tennessee, what really has he done? He requires a really good offensive line, which I will give the credit to the offensive line. They've done better, but they're not elite. They're not at a place right now where they can be a top 5 running team like he wants them to be. It's a tight end heavy, passing attack, which again, we have lots of tight ends, but you need guys that are going to stretch the field deep and get you to score quick when you're down the way the Steelers have been down. And so I don't think Arthur Smith's scheme is really anything that impressive. I don't think anybody was really wooed and excited about when Arthur Smith was announced as the offensive coordinator. I think we all kind of wiggled our way into being more excited than we actually were, in the same way a lot of us were wiggled into thinking Kenny Pickett was
Mm-hmm.
going to be God knows what
Guilty.
more than we actually were. Guilty, me too. Guilty, a lot of us. But when you look at an offensive scheme, an offensive system that's really, really working well, it's almost like indescribable how different any other NFL offense looks compared to the Steelers. When I see Steelers games now and I see Steelers games in the past, really you could blindfold me and I'd say they're the same team. Like they just look
Yeah.
old and outdated. It's like I'm playing Madden 2012 like over and over. It's just the same basic vanilla stuff over and over again. And defensively, everybody in the group chat I'm with is probably sick and tired of me being so fed up with Terrell Austin, but I've never been a Terrell Austin guy. I
No.
mean, the fact that he was with the Bengals and then he left tells me everything I need to know. Tells me everything I need to know about this guy. And I know that Mike Tomlin's really the mastermind, the puppeteer, coaching the defense and all of that. But I think we'd all be stupid to think that Terrell Austin doesn't have a say in what happens. You know what I mean? Like Mike Tomlin's not this vindictive, evil mastermind that tells everybody to shut up and let him fully control everything. He's giving Terrell Austin a shot here. And I just think Terrell Austin just, again, isn't doing enough. You have all these wonderfully talented edge rushers. And most recently that, we've been seeing a lot of progress between the Colts game and the game we just saw the other day, but the secondary looks confused. I mean, it wasn't until they finally decided to simplify it down. Gee, who could have fucking thought about that? Make things easy for the guys back there. But it wasn't until they simplified the secondary that they actually started getting results. I mean, those are just things that add up over time. And if you wanted my honest opinion, I know a lot of people want to go for Mike Tomlin's seat. And I think that might be the case if he has his first losing season, because that's kind of the thing that has kept him afloat all these years, because it ain't playoff wins anymore. It's winning seasons. But I think more so than Mike Tomlin, these offensive and defensive coordinators, offensive line coach, like everything needs to be cleaned, like clean house.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with literally everything you stated regarding Smith and Austin and the whole scheme issue, because you're right. When you look at the Steelers offense from years past to now, there's no difference. It's to me, Arthur Smith is Matt Canada with variety. You're gonna get some I form. You're gonna get under center. You're gonna get some shotgun. You're gonna get 12 and 13 personnel. You might even get a little bit of pistol. You're not gonna get as much 11 personnel, but there's just a little more variety. But it doesn't excite me. Nothing about Arthur Smith's scheme wows Steelers Nation. It doesn't. And frankly, he's never schemed a top 15 passing game. So why should we expect him to not only remain as OC, but continue to improve everything as an offensive unit? So as a fan, there's only so little I can really get excited about when it comes to the offense and what he wants to do. Now, it's very interesting. I'm going to open up a whole another can of worms here. It's very interesting that under, I'm going to say 3 different coordinators since Haley, Fickner, Canada, and Smith, it's all kind of led to the same results in the same very safe and conservative run style. Now, I get that's the Steelers' style they've been running since the 70s. They're run heavy. They want to run the ball. They're ground and pound and everything, right? But you also got to have a passing attack. And I'm very aware the Steelers have struggled with the quarterback position since Ben. We've been through some times. Maybe not as bad as before our time or what the Browns are dealing with. But I've seen Mitch. I've seen Kenny. I've seen Russ. I am watching Rodgers. And Rodgers is the best of them all. Granted, that's not, a lot of great to choose from. Rodgers is the best of them all at 41 years old. But it's still not an offense that's going to wow you. Or I don't think it's an offense that's going to take us over that hump like we want it to. And in terms of Austin, yeah, I agree. Just simplify the defense. Let's not overcomplicate things. And I don't know why they're not playing a guy like Nick Herbig more. Like, I see he's getting an increase in snaps some games, and he's getting a decrease in others. But I feel like a guy like him, we talk about Warren, what he can do on the offense. a guy like Herbig, I feel like anytime he's on the field, he's making a play or he's involved in the play. It's one of those things where the scheme is basic and they run away from what really works and they kind of overcomplicate things as a coaching unit. I don't know. I don't know about you, but that's kind of my assessment there.
No, I really do think it comes down to two things, right? It comes down to philosophy and it comes back to quarterback play. So, philosophy. This team at its very core is under Mike Tomlin okay with short, scrappy wins. Mike Tomlin does not care because Mike Tomlin only wants wins. He doesn't care what it looks like. If the Steelers win 3-2, like how that game looked like against the Chargers for the first bit, he'd be okay with it because it's a win. He doesn't care what it looks like. He
Agreed.
doesn't care how it gets done. And that is the core philosophy of the Steelers. It bleeds into the way they do their offensive business. It bleeds into the way they do their defensive business. How long have we heard and thought about how they just can't make mistakes on offense? Just don't fuck it up. Just don't fuck it up. Don't make any. We're going to stay conservative. We're not going to throw to the middle of the field. We're not going to air it out. We're going to try and win the game of possession by just running it all the time. And same on defense. We're going to play zone. We're going to play prevent. We're not going to let you go over us and get a big splashy play. We would rather you go methodically down the field. That's just their philosophy. And if we want the team to change their philosophy, you're going to need to get a new head coach. You're
Absolutely.
going to need to get a new head coach that says, hey, I want to take more risks. A guy like the head coach right now for the Lions, I want to take more risks. I want to try and air it out a little bit more. I want to have a little bit more fight in my team.
Mhm.
And then the second half of it is quarterback play. It'd be one thing if the Steelers had, say, a young Josh Allen on their team who had a bazooka for an arm and was super uber talented, and they were just wasting away his potential. The Steelers haven't had that. And I argue, even with Aaron Rodgers, to an extent, they don't have that level of quarterback play that would make them have to tailor to the quarterback's talents as opposed to the quarterback suited to the offensive coordinator's talents.
Right.
You know what I mean? They've had Pickett, they've had Trubisky, they've had Mason Rudolph, they've had, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Nobody there is good enough to warrant a change in your offensive philosophy. In fact, I would dare say that those guys were chosen because they're not going to go against the offensive philosophy. They're just going to do as they're told. They're glorified, game managers in a sense. Whereas if the Steelers, I'm just saying in the next 2 years, find their guy, someone that's a little bit more gifted, hopefully a lot more gifted in the talent department, then they're really going to have to think, you know what? This guy's got a really good arm. This guy is really good at running. We can't waste that. You know what I mean? It's the whole Lamar Jackson thing. Nobody really wanted to suit their team to be a run style team. Lamar comes in, they suit an offense to do what he's got to do, and they look fantastic. You take a Josh Allen, guy that's just going to chuck it downfield. We're going to suit the offense to his talents. So I think that's why the Steelers have had as much problems scheme-wise the past few years. They don't have their guy who's doing any one specific thing well enough to warrant a big change that the fan base wants to see. And down to its very core philosophy, the Steelers just want to win. They don't care about anything else.
Yeah, and I think that makes us appreciate Ben a little more in his retirement, that he was that guy that took us over that hump. That, when you look at the way the offense is run now and the way Ben ran it in his prime years, there was a dramatic difference in having that guy and someone that could lead the charge and someone that could sling the football, someone that could literally open things up for the offense, no matter the coordinator, right?
Mhm.
Now, the Steelers, they don't have that guy like you mentioned, and I don't know when we're going to have that guy again. But my thing is, even if they get that guy, here's the difference between a guy like Ben and the guy they might get, who, let's say he's half as talented as Ben. He could be the next guy. Thing is, Ben was a long-time veteran that someone like Tomlin trusted. If they go and get their guy, say in Pittsburgh, or say if they want to wait for 2027, to me, Tomlin's still going to be the coach, unfortunately. Tomlin's still going to be the coach, and they're going to run the same philosophy that they've been running, and the owner is going to run with the same thing because he still thinks, hey, my granddaddy and my daddy won championships with it. Maybe I can do the same. In reality, you can't because it's so fucking outdated.
No.
It's more outdated than his matches, probably. But even if they get their guy, and he's as talented, and we know what his ceiling is, I just don't know if that is going to truly mask the scheme issues that we all know the Steelers have. I still think it all lies in the coaching. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and I preached about this after the Chargers loss in the post game. It's because the Steelers are way too damn safe because they don't want to force mistakes. They don't want to do this and that. They don't want to be extra gutsy. They don't want to be extra aggressive. And it appears, even with Aaron Rodgers, who of course is a future first ballot Hall of Famer, they don't have that confidence or that trust in a trusted veteran to have A-Rod do what he needs to do to control the offense or call the plays or call what he sees in the defense and call the plays that he likes and what he needs to do to get his players in the best predicaments and just sling the football on a good day.
See, but I think that's what they tried to do with Russ last year because he might not be a future Hall of Famer anymore, but at the time he might have been. And now they got Aaron Rodgers. To me, the Steelers are relying on player reputation and name value to fix the issues when really the problems lie in the organization, in the scheming, in the coaching room.
It's like look at yourselves in the mirror and understand that what you're doing, your mindset, your philosophy, your safe style is what's hurting this team.
It's not.
But they're safe. They're safe for it because it's good enough for them.
It's not good enough for us fans. To them, it is
because on paper it's like. It's a winning record. It's success. We made the playoffs.
And we might be sounding greedy or spoiled, as everyone likes to put. And listen, we could be worse off. We could be like the Jets. We could be like the Browns. We could be like the Titans right now. We could be one of the worst teams in the league. Maybe we should be grateful that we're still having a winning season and we're making the playoffs and we haven't had a losing since 2003. But what is the point if you're just going to get to the playoffs and get blown out like we have 6 straight times? And it could go on 7, which, by the way, if that happens, that would tie Marvin Harris for the most consecutive playoff losses.
Yeah, Marvin Lewis, man. Oh
Marvin Lewis, who we made fun of 10 years ago for this, and now I feel like we're suffering something similar. Sentinel, how do you feel?
I have a new nickname that I've been calling this team myself. I've never told anybody this, but I call the Steelers the extreme team. They play to the extremes. They're either going to blow the doors off and kill you like they did the Colts with stats that are ludicrous. I mean, turnovers galore, sacks galore, all those crazy things, or they're going to play to the other extreme and do absolutely. I mean, if you look at Aaron Rodgers' stats against the Chargers, and then look what was accomplished in what he did against teams like the Jets and teams like the Bengals. It's like the two bipolar opposites.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how the entire team is. And that brings me to a point that I think the best teams in the NFL can do, and everybody else is just pretenders at. And that's consistency. I had somebody in a previous career that I was in tell me that your job as a professional is to be consistent. Consistency is your job. Your job is to come in and do the same exact thing that's expected of you every single time. And that's where I feel like the Steelers have a lot of their issues currently right now. I'm not talking where they will be at the end of the season or what they did currently in the beginning of the season. I'm talking right now. This team has a consistency problem. It has a consistency problem at the quarterback position. It has a consistency problem at the offensive line position. It has a consistency problem in the health and injury department. And it has a consistency problem in the way they game plan and they scheme for games. You can either have the Colts version that looked amazing and the scripting for that looked fantastic, or the Chargers version, which is like almost like inconceivably bad. And I think that's where this team and why Mike Tomlin gets so much crap all the time, because consistency should fall down from the top to the bottom. It should start with Mike Tomlin and how he runs his team all the way down. Consistency is something that managers teach their staff, it's something coaches teach their players. And that's where I think a lot of Steelers fans are fed up with it. They're fed up with the high powered offense and the low scoring defense, the low scoring offense and the high scoring defense. Like, they're so tired of one side of the ball being good and the other one being trash. And that's a consistency problem. And that stems from coaching. That stems from coaching. Yes, players are not going to execute all the time, they're going to make mistakes. But if it happens so frequently, you start to wonder what these players are being told to do that we don't see.
No, and obviously, that's going to be behind closed doors. That's nothing that us fans are going to be lucrative enough to know, obviously. But no, yeah, the Steelers definitely have a consistency issue. The only thing they're consistent at is collapsing towards the end of the season. But this season, it seems like it's starting a little earlier. As again, they're 1-3 in their last 4, and the schedule doesn't get any easier. And they don't have a bye to rest on. They have no mini bye anymore. So it's just straight football for the next 8 weeks, and maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe.
And I will say this as a point. I know that a lot of us, myself included, get passionate and get fed up and just want Mike Tomlin to be out of here. And listen, that might end up unfortunately being the case. Whether or not he's the true and only problem is another discussion for another time. But he might just end up losing his job because the organization wants to see something different, not necessarily because he was 100% to blame. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That just might end up being what happens because the fan base is just tired of seeing the same old thing over and over and over again.
Yeah, I don't know if that day ever comes for Art Rooney II. I don't know if he ever makes that decision. He's always been one to praise Tomlin and say he still trusts him to do what he's got to do to bring another championship here. Us two have our doubts, Sentinel. I'm not sure about you, but
I think there really is a way in which that happens. I really do. I think that there will be serious change. I know a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And I'm right there with you. If Mike Tomlin, this is the scenario in which I could see him moving on. I really do. If Mike Tomlin, after being 4-1 and the Ravens being 1-5, loses this division to the Ravens because the Ravens are able to make it all the way to say 11-6 or 10-7, and the Steelers fall to either like 10-7 and 9-8, if somehow the Ravens win this division after having this big of a win, this big of a lead over the Ravens, and they don't go to the playoffs, it's there's going to be some serious problems. If Mike Tomlin has his first losing season, plus no playoff win, plus the Ravens somehow getting this division after they were in the shadow realm, that's where I see some serious changes happening. Because then at that point, what positives do you have to go? You didn't make the playoffs, you had a losing season, and you let the people who are like 600 games behind you somehow win the division.
yeah. See, but I think that was the issue last year because we had a decent lead in the division, and we, with that Russ pick, symbolically gave the Ravens the division. We lost however many straight, five, six.
After being 10-3, we lost 5 straight.
5 straight, got blown out in the playoffs, and they didn't make a single coaching change. The organization didn't make a single change. Now, maybe this year, if they keep going down this effect, that could be the straw that breaks the camel back. In fact, I'm sure there's a lot of people listening to this right now that are hoping and praying that Philly G, Sentinel, I hope you're right, because we do want to see change. There's a lot of people that do want to see change. I feel like it's been too long now, and we're going on how many years of seeing rinse and repeat all over again, despite different coordinators, despite different player personnel. We're already going down the same trickle effect, and it's only week 11. So there's a lot of people that are probably saying right now, commenting, please be right. I hope you're right. But there's also people, yourself included, that are saying, I'll believe it when I see it. Let's say he does have his first losing season. Let's say Coach T has his first losing season. Do you think Art Rooney II, do you think that he is going to look at that and say, that's not good enough? we're going to move on? Or do you think he's going to look at that and think, well, one losing season out of 19 years isn't so bad?
I think in the long scheme of things, when he looks back on Mike Tomlin's time in Pittsburgh, he's going to say, wow, you are a really consistent coach. You didn't have a losing season for 19 some odd years. But I think in the short term, in the what have you done for me lately scenario, where everybody in the trying to be the best version of themselves in the NFL, if I'm Art Rooney and I'm looking at this team and I'm thinking, okay, well, my head coach hasn't won a playoff in almost 10 years. The standard that everybody's holding him to in the national media anymore is that he's never lost a losing season. He's never had a losing record. And now he can't even do that for me. And again, I know last year the Steelers ended up losing the division, but I don't think we all take a second to really wrap our heads around. The Ravens were like 1-5. They should have ran away with that division and made it almost impossible for them to come back. That would be so damning of this team to know that Lamar, who was injured, and a team that their defense was absolute garbage, somehow, some way came back and won this division when it clearly should have been yours. To me, at that point, you have to have a serious conversation with Mike Tomlin. You have to. And listen, I'm not saying that he's going to get fired. I really don't. But I think there's a more likely chance that he gets fired after a season like that than he does have, another contract extension with the Steelers.
Yeah, I can believe that. I think his current contract right now is the last he's going to have. Now, if it isn't, then shame on Rooney, shame on the Steelers. But I can agree with you saying that there's a likelier chance of him getting fired than him getting another extension. I feel like this is it for him. He's coached up until 2020 or through the 2027 season.
Yeah.
So the next time the Steelers can get a new head coach, if Tomlin plays out this contract, is 2028. Will that be the time? Could the Steelers fire him by then? You know what? You're right. Maybe they view the division aspect as the most damaging thing, as you should have ran away with this. Like, we should have been locked this up by week 13 or something, right? Like, they should have definitely ran away with the division, and now the Ravens are one game behind. Maybe Art Rooney II looks at that and thinks to himself, maybe it is time for a change. He might not make a decision, but it might be for once Tomlin is put on the hot seat. Now, I'm not going to believe that. I'll believe it when I see it, but I would like to see Art Rooney II grow a pair and at least pull him into the office, tell him, listen, I'm seeing this too often. This can't be it no more. You're getting a little heat. We got to go a different way, but we'll see what we do. Maybe he gives Tomlin one more chance at drafting his quarterback next year, since apparently that's what the Steelers' plan is.
Yeah, seeing how the division is right now and just the momentum the Ravens have, if the Steelers do fumble the division and the Ravens take it, I don't see how Art Rooney doesn't at least have a sit-down discussion with Tomlin and tell him, listen, like, something's got to change. Because I do remember before the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year, there were talks of Nick Sirianni being on the hot seat because he had a lead in the division and for his football team. Then he lost the rest of his games in 2023, I want to say, and he was one and done in the postseason. He was on the hot seat, according to a couple sources. He made drastic coaching changes, made drastic coordinator changes. And what happened? His first year after doing so, he had Kellen Moore as OC and Vic Fangio as DC. Eagles won the Super Bowl because...
And he got Barkley.
Yes, he got Barkley because he was aggressive and he had to make the changes necessary in order to keep his job. He was fighting and playing and coaching for his job.
Right.
And that's what I feel like Art Rooney needs to do if the division is fumbled by the Steelers once again for a second straight season. Art Rooney's got to have that same discussion with Mike Tomlin. Tell him change needs to be made, and you gotta coach for your job, because if this continues to go on, you ain't going to be here any longer, buddy.
Yeah, let's say that the season goes the way that we're fearing, not the way we want. I don't want the season to go the same way we've seen the last 7 years. I want it to be different this time. I do. I want them to make a push. I want them to win a playoff game and then advance as far as they can. That's what I want. What my fear is that we're going to see the same season all over again. If that happens, and Art Rooney II's comments at the end of the season is not what we're saying here in this video, then I don't know anymore, man. I don't know anymore as a Steelers fan.
Well, then that goes back to the culture issue with the Steelers, and I feel like that culture went when Dan Rooney unfortunately passed away.
Yeah,
Like
agreed.
that is no longer the culture is no longer alive, and I feel like that does come from the top of the organization. That's
Yeah,
just
I
my
mean,
opinion.
at the end of the day, it's like, what does this team want? You know what I mean? Like, what does the team want to accomplish? What is the organization trying to accomplish? Because when Ben Roethlisberger was around before he retired, it was very clear that they were trying to win a Super Bowl because they had their franchise guy who was going to be wrapping it up soon. And for all intents and purposes, their window is going to be closing after that. So then they go into this kind of soft rebuild where it's like, kind of Kenny Pickett, kind of Mitch Trubisky were like kind of testing the waters, but they never really built around anything. They kind of just hoped that, again, the defense would carry everything and the offense would kind of just fall in line. Well, the soft rebuild doesn't work. Now you have your new talented superstars who are no longer your quarterback. It's your edge rusher. It's your safety, Minka Fitzpatrick at the time. It's your defensive captain and Cam Hayward. Now you're trying to get into win now mode for those guys.
Mhm.
And once again, it's not working. So this philosophy and just general goal of this organization, I think, is going to need to be the first thing Mike Tomlin and Art have a conversation in, is where do you see this team going and how do you want to do it? And if it's nothing that Art likes or is willing to put up with anymore, then they're going to make some changes. Again, do I think Mike Tomlin is the first to go? No. Do I even think that Mike Tomlin should be the first to go? Also, no, because remember, a lot of these players that have come to the Steelers of late have said that they came there because of Mike Tomlin. Whether we like it or not, people want to play for the guy. He is a magnet. He is attractive to players. He's the number one player that people want to go. He's the number one coach, that players want to go play for. Point blank and period. Now, what I think needs to be done is I do think that the coaching staff outside of Tomlin needs a complete reset. I think that this team having one of the most historically low and understaffed coaching rooms in the entire NFL needs to change. They need run game coordinators. They need defensive coordinators. They need defensive assistants. They need offensive assistants. Like, I don't understand why this coaching staff has not evolved and has not grown. It is like a skeleton crew. It is like, hey, we have an offensive guy, a defensive guy, a pack of bubble gum, and that's it. Like, I don't understand why it's not more complex and more deeply rooted. There's passing assistants, I mean, my God, you look at like what the Eagles are doing. They're a team that has all the resources in the world and they have everything super detailed out. You look at the way the Rams do things, they're super thorough and detailed. And the Steelers are just like so old fashioned, still using AOL and faxing and floppy disks when it comes to their coaching staff. You need a new O-line coach, need a new defensive coordinator, need a new offensive coordinator, need a passing coordinator, need a running coordinator, need some assistants. Like, let's get with the times, y'all. It's 2026.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This coaching staff is still the smallest in the entire NFL. It really
It's
is.
not working. And it'd be one thing if it's like it's small and it's working. It's small and it's not working. So what are we doing?
I think the organization overall is just very, very cheap. They refuse to pay for extra hands in the coaching staff or for certain coordinator spots. They refuse to go after the more popular or the higher names to open things up, to bring the best guys to your organization to really make the best football team possible, make the best coaching staff possible under Mike Tomlin. If they get rid of Arthur Smith, first of all, Terrell Austin should be gone after this year. Okay, if there's someone that should be gone and it's not going to be Tomlin because we know it's not going to be, Austin should go. He's got to go. Who's the DC? I don't know, but get someone else in there. And then I agree, get a defensive assistant, get some other coordinator down there. We need a new hand down there at defensive coordinator. Will it make that big of a difference? I don't know. I mean, we've seen under Keith Butler, under Austin, they've both admitted that Tomlin has a hand in calling some plays when he desires to. So I really don't know if a coordinator change is going to make the complete fix, because I do have my doubts. But overall, if they're going to make one coaching change, we know it's not going to be Tomlin, but it should be Terrell Austin. I don't think Arthur Smith's going to, unless he gets a head coaching job. I don't want to roll that out. He could definitely get head coaching interviews. Maybe he's the next guy for the Titans, maybe the Giants, maybe the Dolphins if they fire Mike McDaniel, right? So if he goes, then that opens up an offensive coordinator spot. Then they should go after one of the more creative young minds out there. Someone from the Shanahan tree, the McVay tree, the Dan Campbell tree. An offense that works, an offense that succeeds, an offense that opens things up. They got to escape that philosophy of running the football and actually open to what is now very successful in the NFL. And that's not just from a coaching aspect, that's from an organization aspect as well. And that's where it comes down to them. They got to stop being cheap. Rooney and the entire organization, they are very cheap with who they want to penny pinch at the coaching staff, which is why it's so small, which is why they don't have all these extra hands and all these extra minds, all these extra creative brains to be putting some extra stuff on the football field. That's definitely one thing they should do this upcoming offseason. No matter how the rest of the season goes, that's one thing they should definitely do this upcoming offseason. That was something I was hoping they would do, and they didn't. That's one of the more aggressive natures they got to do this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely. What's the old saying? Scared money don't make no money.
Absolutely.
You get what you pay for. If I go to the dealership tomorrow and I go into the used car section and I get a Honda Civic 2010 model with 1,000,000 miles on it and it breaks down on the side of the road, am I the one to blame or is the car the one to blame? Same exact thing. If you want success in the NFL, you need to pay for it. The richer teams are only going to continue to get more and more rich. Again, look at the Eagles. Look at the teams that are doing it the best right now. The Eagles are a team right now that, for all intents and purposes, are one of the best in the NFL. I know a lot of people are not kind of wowed about how Jalen Hurts is playing, so on and so forth. But from a talent perspective, from a player perspective, they are more than stacked. And yet, which team do you see actively always doing everything in their power to continue to upgrade, to trade, to grab guys at the deadline? The Eagles. They just brought in Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins, and he had a killer game against the Packers. I mean, that team has no need to continue to upgrade, and they do it all the time. And that's what good teams do.
Well, I'll give you a look at the Chiefs. They had Alex Smith. I think they made the playoffs in Alex Smith's second to last year, but they still traded up to the 10th pick to get Mahomes, and obviously they're the top dog in the NFL. These teams, these superpowers, aren't afraid to stay aggressive.
You got to. I'm a huge sci-fi nerd, and if you've seen the Dune movies, there's the old saying, fear is the mind killer. I mean, fear is how you kill your franchise and your organization, by living in your fears, something Mike Tomlin swears they don't do, but I think more and more to myself how much they actually do live in their fears.
Yeah, this organization overall just they need a huge wake-up call. I don't know what it's going to take, when that's going to happen. Everybody from the top down, Art, Mike, everybody needs a wake-up call. They need to change what isn't working. What they've been trying to run with for so long isn't working. I don't think there is going to be change. There's no reason for me to believe change, but that is what there needs to be. If they're going to keep Tomlin, which I do believe they will, I think he'll play out his contract, they need to completely rethink, how do we win in today's NFL? How do we get over the hump? We're good enough to not lose in a losing season manner, but how do we get a fucking playoff win? How do we get further on past that?
Yeah.
Overall, as an organization, they need to wisen up. They need to stop being cheap. They need to open their wallets a little bit. And overall, they gotta let these players play. They gotta let these coaches coach. It's like what Bill Carr did for Ben. Bill Carr wrote in his book, right? When Ben wasn't supposed to play that year. In his rookie season, Ben wasn't supposed to play. Carr thought he was raw. He was the third guy. He wasn't supposed to play. Quarterbacks got hurt. Ben came in mad early.
Yeah, and Ben was running the offense the way it was when Maddox was the quarterback. But then Cowher seeing how Ben was, because Ben was playing backyard football, Ben was playing like Ben even as a rookie. He's seen that, he acknowledged that, and he was like, you know what? The way you're playing, it's working, it's successful, we're winning games. We're going to scheme up the offense to work in your favor so you can get the ball to these players so that you can play the best of your ability. And look what happened.
Yeah, instead of trying to make your players fit your awful scheme, how about you open things up to help their benefit and their strong suits and their positives?
And yeah, and it's in that regard that I just think the Steelers haven't found their guy yet. I mean, Kenny Pickett was as safe of a pick as you could make at that point in time. I mean, he was like a safety blanket. You weren't really pushing the envelope. Very, conservative pick right there with taking him. And I just think that if they do find a quarterback that's going to push them a little bit, they're going to have to get with the times, because right now, and this might rub people the wrong way, what I'm about to say here. A lot of Steelers fans and a lot of media love to live in the past when it comes with the Steelers.
You're not
They
wrong.
love to bring up the 70s. They love to bring up the early 2000s, and rightfully so. Those were very good football teams, but leave that shit in the fucking past and let's worry about where the team is right now. Because where the team is right now and where the team was in the 70s and the 2000s, early 2000s, they're you can't distinguish the two from each other anymore. This team wants to live so far in the past. They're like a father-son relationship, right? The father was a super successful business person, made this huge name for themselves, broke all these records, and now the son is just living off of what the dad made. And is living off what the dad made, and he hasn't really done anything yet on his own. It's kind of what the Steelers are right now. They're so living on the fruit of the past of the 70s and the Steel Curtain and the Ben Roethlisberger days and Troy Polamalu that they don't really do anything to push the envelope forward into the new era. And that's where I get frustrated.
No, the only thing that really connects the teams from the past and team currently is the fact that they wore and rep black and gold, but that's the only thing that they represent or are connected with. When you look at this team, it's not Super Bowls. It's not. They don't connect in that factor. They only connect in the way of, hey, we are Steelers. We are black and gold. That's it. I think Peasy himself even said that too.
Yeah, they represent the 3 stars in that Steelers shield, that Steelers emblem. That's literally the only thing that connects them is that, hey, they were Steelers. Otherwise, this team, I'm going to ask you this question. How do you feel about the rest of the season? Do you still think that this team can make the playoffs? And if they do you truly think this team is good enough to actually get us our first playoff victory since the 2016 season?
Do I think the team is talented enough to get a playoff win? Yes, because I look at that Colts game and I think to myself, that is what this team could be if it gets everything going right. A very physical and nasty defense that's going to take the ball away against the best offense in the NFL at the time, the future MVP, probably winner in Jonathan Taylor, and a guy who's doing historic things for his team and in the NFL in Daniel Jones. So yes, do I think the Steelers are talented enough? Absolutely. Will they get their heads out of their asses? Absolutely fucking not. Absolutely not. I do think the team's going to make the playoffs. I do think they'll be a wild card team, and I do think they're going to end up probably playing like a Buffalo or a Baltimore in a playoff game, and I think they're going to lose. But this team does have the ability to do so, not through coaching, but through the players they have. The Jalen Ramseys, the DK Metcalfs, the Aaron Rodgers. If they play to the highest ability they can right now, that can make up for the lack of coaching. But again, will that happen? I don't think so. I think we're looking at a 10-7 football team here that ends up losing first round of the wild card.
That would happen 3 straight years.
As things are right now. Next week they come out and they play like they did against the Colts again. My mind might change. But for right now, based off of what I've seen the past 2 weeks between what the Colts gave them and what the Chargers gave them, I'm not so sure.
I mean, imagine going 10-7 for a 3rd straight year, because we went 10-7 with Kenny, Mitch, and Mason. Then we went 10-7 with Russ and Fields, and the possibility of going 10-7 3 straight years, and the end result would be the same. The past how many years now?
Right.
I mean, how could that not warrant change? How could that not warrant a possible sit down discussion? I hope that's not the case. Of course, I don't want that to be the case. But just looking at how the team is, I have to agree with Sentinel. It's like that's just the way it looks right now.
Yeah,
And a lot of people also want to say, "Oh, we're a spoiled fan base." I can promise you that if the Eagles, Chiefs, or Bills went 10-7 3 years in a row and got no playoff wins, people would be knocking down their doors too. It's not unreasonable to want this team to win a playoff game.
Yeah.
It is not unreasonable for this team to want to do better than 10-7. That's only 2 games above 500. That's not great.
No.
10-7 is not a good record. It sounds nice because it's bigger than what we're used to, but put in perspective, 10-7 is only 2 away from 500.
Yeah, I
not
mean,
that good.
it's double digit wins. I think that's the only good thing about it. But yeah, I mean, it's not really anything crazy. And honestly, at this point, it might get you good enough for a 6th or a 7th seed. Like, I think, what team was it last year in the NFC? They got like 10 or 11 wins and didn't make the playoffs. Was it the Seahawks? Or what team was it? I forget what team.
I think it was Seattle. I think McDaniel went 10-7 his first season.
Yeah, and they didn't make the playoffs. Now, granted, the NFC was very stacked, but that goes to show you that, yeah, 10 games might not be enough.
No, I consider nowadays 10 wins, especially if you're the Steelers, that's very middle bar right there.
Yeah.
That's middle of the road right there. Like, especially an organization like the Steelers, like, how could you not want more? And as a fan base, we want more because of the same old every single year. How could you not want to vie for more? How could you not want to fight for more? How could you not want to gain more every single year and learn from your mistakes and learn from your mishaps and just grow and just better yourself and be consistent at that, consistently grow, consistently get better.
Right.
I don't get it. I just don't get them being safe.
Obviously, the best chance for the Steelers to make the playoffs is as simple as this: win the division. Win the division, and at worst, you're the 4th seed.
Yeah.
Or the 3rd, depending on what the Broncos do. Because I don't like Bo Nix and what he's doing right now. That defense is carrying that team. But all you do is win the division and you make the playoffs. Otherwise, if you choke and let the Ravens win, you're going to need at least 10 wins to make the playoffs. Because you still got the Bills battling with the Patriots for the AFC East. But one of those teams is going to be probably the 5th seed, most likely. So you still got one of those teams, let's say the Bills, for example. You still got the Bills battling for, let's say right now, the 5th seed or the 6th seed. You got the Chargers that are up there with 7 wins. You got the Jags. You got the Chiefs that are 5-4. They have the same record as us, crazy enough.
Mhm.
You got the Texans that are trying to make a comeback, and they got a great chance of getting to 500. You got the Ravens coming back. So it's going to be a very tough road for that AFC picture, the AFC playoff picture, where these wins are going to get very, very important, and any loss is going to look very sketchy. Any extra losses we suffer, our playoff chances dwindle. So, honestly, even with 10 wins and them getting 2nd place in the division, that honestly might not be good enough seeing this current AFC picture. Anything can change in the next 8 weeks, but it's just a matter of just win the division. Like, stop being stupid. Just win the division. That's what you should have done last year. You gave it away. You had a great chance to take the commanding lead, and it's not very commanding. You still got it, but it's not very commanding right now.
Yeah, and this will be the last thing I have to say here on the matter, but I think the first half of this season, the first 8 games, were kind of a temperature check. Is this team legit from what they did in the offseason? What do they look like with Aaron Rodgers? It was kind of like us trying to figure out what this team was. And now we know what that is. This second half of the season, and even into the postseason, if there even is any, is going to be the litmus test. It is going to be figuring out if this team needs to blow it up or not. It's going to be the second half of this stretch. It's not going to be necessarily trying to get to the playoffs. I mean, they're going to try to do that, but it's going to be a test for us as the fans, these next 8 games, to evaluate their performance and go, yeah, they need to blow it up or not.
Yeah, and it all really depends how the season goes or how the season ends, which, we all have our fears. We all might have our doubts. or our reservations on what we think is going to happen or what we expect to happen. But at the end of the day, what we want to happen as a true fan is we want them to keep winning. We want them to win the division, and we want them to win a playoff game and go further on, because that is the mission. And like Sentinel said several minutes ago, as we're going on past an hour in this now, they did everything this offseason to make a push. Go all in, however you want to title it. You don't grab all these players. You don't make all these trades just to be like, okay, we saved ourselves from not having a losing season. Mike Tomlin, you're safe from that.
Yeah.
That's not the goal here. That's not the goal here. You did everything you did to make a run. This team, I don't think it can make a run. I have my doubts that they can even make or win a playoff game. I just get the same sense that it's rinse and repeat again.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that towards the end stretch that they have games like the Colts, or like the Vikings, or like the Browns, or even the Patriots. Even though the offense didn't take advantage of half of the turnovers, if the defense can play like that, they might be able to just get by. I'm not saying compete, but get by, which I don't know. Maybe that's good enough for them. Maybe that's what they're complacent with. Any victory they can get is what they're happy with, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes, man. So I think we're going to close it here. We're an hour and a quarter into this video. This was a long and great, fruitful, thoughtful discussion, man. Huge shout to Philly G, a.k.a. Steel Sentinel, again, host of the Black and Bold podcast with the Steel Curtain Network. Definitely go sub up to him if you liked anything he had to say. I will put the link down in the description box below. Definitely go sub up. Definitely go check out his podcast with the Steel Curtain Network. Philly G, thank you, man. It's always a pleasure to discuss this with you. I don't know how many times we've been doing this, but anytime, it's always a great talk, and I can't wait to get with you again, maybe towards the end of the season, maybe at the end of the season, but definitely in the offseason for more fun mock drafts.
Absolutely. I always love being on the show. I love your guys' product is so good. I always love tuning into the show and watching it on YouTube. I watch it at my job, so I really appreciate it. But listen, I appreciate your time, and no matter what happens, we're Steelers fans. We're not going anywhere, and it'll get better eventually.
Yes, absolutely. No matter, there's light at the end of the tunnel somewhere, right?
Just gotta keep looking.
But yeah, man, no, thank you for your time. We do greatly appreciate it. I'm glad we can finally get this together. We can finally get this done, as we've been building it up for the last couple weeks. And I feel like now is the right time. After that Chargers game, this is the right time to get all this out. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that are going to agree with a lot, or they're going to comment somewhat of the same sentiments that maybe they've been thinking, or they've been saying, that they've been preaching. Or maybe if you guys have different opinions yourselves, feel free to let us know down in the comments. Love to always hear your guys' interactions or your thoughts regarding anything that we mentioned in this discussion. But yeah, with that being said, man, definitely go sub up to Philly G. Again, host of the Black and Bold podcast with the Steel Curtain Network. Link in the description. Go sub up to them. Go listen to him, man. Again, huge thank you to him for his time and his thoughts. And you guys, let us know your guys' thoughts, and we'll see you later this week for the Steelers versus Bengals Week 11 Unk Bowl Part 2 preview.
Part 2.
It is going to be Part 2. It should be interesting. At the end of the day, here we go, Steelers, and all we're praying for is a victory this Sunday. See you in the next one.
And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you later.
Peace!